Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch my whiskey wandering video. It's great to have you all part of this little but growing bourbon and whiskey lovers community. And this time I'm here in North County of San Diego in a Costco located in Vista. And this store usually has an above average selection when it comes to things like whiskey and bourbon, so it's a pretty good day of whiskey spotting anytime I go. Also, the whiskeys tend to sell a lot slower than some of the other areas Costco. So if they are sold out at other places, Vista will usually have a couple more. I've gotten kind of lucky on that before. Now, before we get to it though, if you like these videos of whiskey shopping here at Costco, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when my newest videos get put up. So thanks again, and let's get down to it. This trip to Vista, again, it was the end of the day at Costco, and like a jerk, I'm that last guy trying to Indiana Jones slide my way into the closing door of Costco. So this one had to be a little bit quick. But this Costco, again, tends to not have the biggest selection, but also tends to have good numbers of bottles that they actually have that tend to go really quickly at other places. So for example, I bought the last bottle of Woodford Reserve Batch Proof 119.8 in Carlsbad, which is like 15 minutes away, but was able to find a few more here because they still had them. On this trip though, there are three main bottles that really piqued my interest, although I didn't actually end up buying anything on this particular trip. Now, the first bottle that I thought was really interesting was this Whistle Pig 10. Whistle Pig in general catches my eyes, especially nowadays, because I had bought a couple bottles of the Whistle Pig 15, coincidentally, at Costco. And so since I've got the 15, now every time I see it, I at least try to consider picking up any other version or variation of it. Now, it's sort of weird though, because Whistle Pig is technically from the United States in Vermont, but they source all their whiskey from Canada and they still call it American. So it is Canadian whiskey, but everyone considers it American. I don't know, kind of like kind of like Keanu Reeves, I guess. Really, look it up. But needless to say, Whistle Pig was started in 2007 in Vermont and has been putting out some interesting whiskeys pretty much ever since. Now, the Costco price on the Whistle Pig 10 is set at $67.99. The high and low for the street shelf price of the Whistle Pig 10 is $109.99 and has a low of $83.99. So that puts the average street shelf price at $96.99. So if you get it at Costco, that means you would end up saving $29 or 29% if you're a percent kind of guy. Now the ABV on it is at 50%, so I would definitely count this as a little bit more high gravity. And really, speaking of the higher than usual alcohol content, the tasting notes generally are sure to mention the spice or the heat that comes from that ABV. Also, it has kind of a green, rare vegetable flavor with hints of cinnamon, black pepper, peppermint, and pineapple. Oh, say that fast. So it's really a smorgasbord of flavors that you don't usually associate together, and kind of sort of sounds like what you would get if you distilled and aged your garbage disposal juices for 10 years. I mean, I guess in a good way, if you know. But the reviews that it got gave me a very respectable 79 points. So with most reviews, they were held around that 79 to 80 point range. So that is a good sign. Now, at the end, in conclusion, I decided not to buy this time around, but I think that it would be a good addition to add to my growing Whistle Pig collection that I currently have, but I'm just not sure how often I would drink it, considering the flavor profile seems a bit, I guess, eccentric. So, with me personally, I will consider buying it next time I see it at Costco, but this time, I decided to pass it by. Okay, so the second bourbon that I have seen online a little bit and in some forums and reviews is this Jefferson Very Old Small Batch Bourbon. So with a name like that, how could you pass it by? Now, I know there's another version where they keep the whiskey, I guess, on a boat and it kind of floats around and it moves around, so it gets a different exposure than sitting in a warehouse like a lot of normal bourbons. So I think the distiller seems to be trying to think outside of the box and try new ways of reinventing bourbon, which may be good or may be bad, just depends on where you are on that. But also being relatively a new upstart in this industry and having kind of a lot of positive reviews, the reviews have wide spans between what the scores are. So it leads me to be a little suspicious of some of the reviews maybe being influenced by the distiller, to put it politely. But the bottle does look nice, and with the name Very Old and Small Batch, I mean, it's enticing. Let's face that. And it does appear that there are some bourbons as old as 20 years old that are mixed into this one. But given the price that it's currently at, I mean, it's probably just basically like a hummingbird's tears worth of in each bottle. So Either way, the cost at Costco is very mid-range at $41.99, while the high and low shelf price is at $59.99 and low at $49.99, which puts the average price at $54.99. So if you bought this at Costco, you would save $13 or 23.64% versus the average street price. Now, getting to the reviews. This is where things get a little bit tricky because there are not a lot of reviews and they are all over the place. So one person says they love it and give it a 90 out of 100, which makes me a bit suspicious, while another one gives it 55 points and has some sort of grievance with how the whiskey is sourced rather than the taste. And then another is kind of right down the average at 70 points. So the review that I saw on average gave it 82 points, but take that with a pinch of salt for all those reasons. Now, the taste profile in general gives it a strong oak, tobacco, and brown sugar flavor, which I do like, and so that is good too. But again, I think in conclusion, it's too big of a risk to put all my money to buy a full bottle of this whiskey on my whiskey budget. But I think it's the issue is that I get so frustrated when I spend money on whiskey and then it ends up being lackluster. So I guess I'd just rather avoid it altogether. But maybe if I'm at some sort of business function where somebody else is paying for it, or if I'm at a bar or a restaurant that offers flights of tastes, I will try it and then try to make a decision whether to buy it next time. But this time, I'm going to let this one pass on by until more information becomes available. Now, the last bottle I'm going to talk about, and I guess I saved the best for last, which is this Laphroaig 25. So first, I have to confess my bias. Although I have never had Laphroaig 25 specifically, I am an avid drinker of the normal entry-level Laphroaig, and I love it. Now, of course, I do drink it as a replacement for Lagavulin when supplies get tight because the Laphroaig tends to be more readily available. But just being upfront with my bias, I do love normal Lagavulin, and I will probably love Lagavulin 25, and that's going to show through. But that being said, Laphroaig 25 is, like it sounds, a much more mature rendition of the normal garden variety Laphroaig that many people, including myself, love and enjoy. It's aged in second fill sherry and ex-bourbon casks, and is even rumored to be the favorite of Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, which, despite that give me liberty or give me death patriotism that most red-blooded Americans feel towards British folks, there is something to be said about the delicious flavor of smoky, peaty, 18th century British imperialism. Either way, I digress. The Laphroaig 25 is not chill filtered, and according to the reviews, reflects an old school style of making whiskeys that Laphroaig had before the current updates to the distillery, before it got bought out, basically. Now, at the Costco price, it is definitely on the high side. It's at $399, but in compared to the high and low on the street shelf price of $699.99 on the high side and $568.99 on the low side, the average comes out to $499. That $399 doesn't seem so bad. So if you get it at Costco, that means you would save $100 in cash, or an average 20% percentage-wise. So it's not the biggest savings that we have seen, but still, it's basically savings of, basically 2 bottles of Blanton's. The ABV on the Laphroaig 25 is a very healthy 51.4%, but it doesn't seem like that beefed up ABV has much of an effect on the balance and the flavor. The tasting notes on it are pure masculinity when it comes to taste, so things like pipe tobacco, cloves, saline, and a very peaty-forward taste. Again, that is pretty much exactly what I would expect from this 25, knowing the normal Laphroaig. So although I did not buy this one, and basically, well, frankly, it's because of the fact that I just don't think that my palate for peated Scotch is just there enough to justify a $400 price. So in conclusion, I think what's going to happen is I plan to work my way up that Scotch hierarchy and get my taste buds in order for that until I'm fully comfortable handling a 25-year-old Laphroaig, and then I'll buy it. Of course, who knows what the cost on it's going to be by then. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wandering at Costco and Vista, which is in San Diego, California. Thank you all so much again for watching to the end, and I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get notified when my newest videos get put up. Also, remember, if you see a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will, and it might even be me. So have a great rest of your day. I'm out. Adios.